Hey there, I'm Kim Anderson from KimAndersonConsulting.com, and this is the video version of my podcast, Just Keep Blogging. I am a full-time blogger and blog coach, and I'm here just to help encourage people to pursue their own success stories. So in today's episode, I really want to talk about the idea of writing really powerful copy. And in writing powerful copy, I think that one area that people probably struggle in is getting inside the head of their audience, and not in like a manipulative way or anything. I mean, truly from an empathy perspective. And so that's what this episode is really about, is about copy, good copy through empathy. So my first question to you is, when you're writing for the audience that you feel like you have picked out for your blog, so or your online platform, whatever that may be, do you feel like that you can actually understand and empathize with your target audience? Because I think that sometimes when we're in a mode where we're like, well, we really want to help somebody, like we want to help somebody solve a problem, right? I think it's really important for you to have some perspective on how that person faces that problem, thinks about that problem, and deals with that problem. And I think a good bit of that actually comes through empathy. More recently, I've run into several clients who kind of had these kind of big aha moments, because we've been working through, audience for a little while. They feel like they have this great hold on who their audience is. They're jazzed about it. But the more they write, the more they feel slightly disconnected from their audience. Like, I'm writing this stuff, but I'm not sure I'm helping people. And it's not from like a confidence perspective. It's not that they're not confident about what they're writing or what they're helping. They're just struggling because it feels like it's almost like surface writing. Like, okay, well, here's 5 tips on how to keep your kitchen clean, right? But if your, target audience is like a person who has like piles and piles and piles of like legit crap, like all over their countertops, and you are like a type A person, it may be very difficult for you to get inside the head of a person who actually struggles with piles and piles of crap on their countertops. Because, as a type A person, you tend to be probably more neat, more organized. Like, your brain cares about that kind of thing. Your brain is wired for that kind of thing. And so when you're talking to an audience whose brain is not wired that way, the solutions you provide may not actually solve their problem, because maybe you are providing solutions for a type A person who has mess things going on and wants to control their environment more. And so as you begin to think about the audience that you're seeking, my question to you today is, do you feel like you can empathize, like that you can put yourself in that person's place enough that you can start to get into those thoughts that they think about themselves or their situation or how they approach what they're doing? And so I think it's important to kind of think about, like, who you are and your life experiences, and how you can put yourself in the place of the reader and really begin to understand how they feel. So for me, when it comes to like this Just Keep Blogging podcast, I often get people who will email me and say, it's like you have a recorder and you're recording my life, like, because somehow you always know what to say, or you always have the right thing. And it's not really magic. It really comes down to the point that I have been there. I have done that. I have started a blog from scratch. I have spent years building a blog, and I remember how I felt. I remember the struggles that I had. I remember the ups and downs that I have. And those are not like, I know those are not unique and individual to me. They are problems that many, many, many people struggle with. And by me being able to talk about how I felt, or talk about how I struggled, or talk about all of that, people can self-identify with that struggle, and therefore it connects the message that I'm speaking in a much stronger way. And so for you, as you approach your blog and you approach the role that you're going to take in your reader or your listener or your watcher's life, my question is, can you actually understand and empathize with that audience? And if not, do you need to pivot the way that you think about your audience or the type of audience that you have so that you can begin to empathize with them more. And if you can't, then how, like, what tools and resources can you use to actually get inside their head? Because I know some people who maybe your avatar is not necessarily representative of you necessarily. They might ask a friend like for real in-depth feedback, they might do surveys, they might do all these kinds of things, and brands do this a little bit, right? Like brands, they do studies, they do all these different things to be able to really understand their customers. But, as writers, as creators, and not necessarily these big brands, we have this unique sort of opportunity to actually like identify an audience that we can also self-identify with. And it may not always work out. Like I know that there are people who are listening that may be like therapists, or you may have like, you may be a life coach. And so maybe the way that you pursue your business doesn't necessarily mean that you have to know your audience, like you have to almost like be your own avatar, because you've been in enough situations and seen enough things that different people, different personality types, different approaches that work for different people. So you may have a profession or something like that that gives you a little bit more insider information into a more diverse audience. So that may work for you. But I think a lot of people who are struggling, I want to ask you to really think about that question. Can I actually understand, empathize, and have my audience self-identify with the stuff that I'm talking about? Because I have been through it. I remember it. I'm close enough to it. And so one of my favorite books is Story Brand by Donald Miller. And in that book, he often talks about the idea of guides. And so when it comes to you as a creator, if you're going to be the guide role in your reader's life, I want to just use a few examples because one that he uses throughout the book just as like an example of a guide is Haymitch from Hunger Games, and how, he guides Katniss, all that sort of thing. And that stories usually have guides of some kind. But I want to point out that these guides oftentimes have been there, done that, and bought the t-shirt, right? So Haymitch is her guide because he was a Hunger Games participant in years past. And so he intimately understands the inside. He's been there, done that, understands the effects, understands the mental requirement, understands the truth. And he tells her that regularly. And then there's the idea of like coaches, like it could be a sports coach or whatever, but they may have experience on the field as well as off the field. And this can also be like a therapist approach too, right? Because sometimes they've had so much off-field experience with people and situations and how things played out that they didn't necessarily have to go through the situation themselves to be able to empathize with it or understand it or help you relate to it. But in general, when you look at story and you look at a lot of the guides in these stories, they have all done whatever it is that they're trying to help the hero do. And if you're taking that story brand approach to your business, where you're trying to make your customer or your reader or your watcher or your listener the hero of their own story, I think that as a guide, it can often help that we have been there and done that before, because it makes it much easier to really be able to hit the pain points, like we say, of your audience, which is important for connection. It's important for all those things. It's not about manipulation. It's about support and really being able to understand how they feel, put yourself in their position. And then because you can put yourself in their position, you lead with a sense of like grace and encouragement. Whether that be somebody, decorating a wall for the first time, or somebody using a power tool for the first time, or, someone, doing some task they've never done before, having a baby, nursing, whatever it might be, you have this unique ability to share your story and to be able to help other people solve their problems because you've already walked the path. Another good example of somebody who is highly polarizing but does a good job is Dave Ramsey. He has been bankrupt in his life, and so therefore he has built this amazing personal finance, strong business, because he's able to go from a standpoint of, hey, I lost everything, and this is how I came back from that. And I think, you don't have to have an extreme story like Dave Ramsey to be able to help people. You just need to have been able to have walked a day in their shoes. It's kind of the perspective. Because if you've been able to walk a day in their shoes, and I feel like this is one of the most powerful things, is that you're able to write from a perspective that they will connect with. You are able to articulate thoughts they might not ever say out loud. And that's really powerful. I feel like that authenticity, that vulnerability, all of those things come together to make this really powerful opportunity for you to actually, make a difference in people's lives, whether your brand is, creating clean drinking water, or just teaching somebody how to use a power tool, or just painting a room, or just making a recipe. Like giving people some sort of confidence, entertainment, whatever it may be, you have the opportunity to tell a story through that. And through that story, through that empathy, through that ability to just connect with them and get inside their head in a, like, I'm inside your head because I've been inside my own head situation, can really help you when you're creating a new product, or you're thinking about the next article that you're going to write, or the next podcast you're going to create, or the next video you're going to make, because you say to yourself, I've been here, failed at this, or struggled with this, or whatever, and now I'm going to provide a solution. And through the story that I'm going to tell, I can authentically open up and say, I used to be really nervous about doing this, but I put my head down, I gave it a try, and now I feel good about it. And I just want to equip you to be able to do the same thing. There's just something really powerful in the ability to say that you've been there, done that, and you really understand their fears, you understand what holds them back, you understand what keeps them from taking action. And that's just a really important thing, I think, in your journey as you become an online business person, online content creator, whatever it may be, that you're able to strongly empathize with the audience that you're trying to reach. And I really believe that empathy builds amazing content, empathy builds amazing copy, empathy builds amazing newsletters, it builds amazing videos, it builds amazing podcasts, and honestly, it builds amazing brands. So whatever you do, just keep blogging, y'all. Keep connecting with your audience. Keep doing your best. But think about these things.